there, Jo Fitzgerald here from Tiny Sponges. I'm going to do another Halloween recipe with you today, and this one is spider scones. It's another scone recipe. Last time I showed you a savoury recipe. This is a sweet recipe, except we're not using sugar. Instead of sugar, we're going to use some fruit in the scones, which will make them really nice and sweet. So these are really good, again, for you to be cooking with your children and also for them to be eating it because, you know, there's no bad sugar in there. So that's really good. Right, before I start, I'm going to tell you to go and put the oven on to about 200 degrees centigrade if you've got a fan oven, or 220 or gas mark 7. The first thing that I did, even before I started filming, was I've got 175 grams of milk in here. And what I did is I squeezed a lemon into here, and I added some vanilla extract as well. And this, what happens with this is it turns it into kind of like a buttermilk, and the buttermilk acts really well with the flour and the baking powder. And it helps your scones to raise. That's the theory anyway. But anyway, so the first thing I'm going to do is add the flour. I'll put the quantities up on an ingredient sheet at the end of the video for you, so you don't have to worry about that. And also there's a teaspoon of baking powder going in there. And now I'm going to add the butter. So butter goes right in there. If you've got a child with dairy allergies, then instead of using butter, you could use vegetable margarine. That would work, you know, it just as well. It'd be absolutely fine. And of course, flour. I've got self-raising here, and it's normal flour, but you don't need to be using normal flour. You could use a gluten-free flour if your child had a gluten allergy, or indeed if you have a gluten allergy, because you're probably going to be eating some of these as well. I'm doing another scone recipe because I think scones are really nice to make with children. They're really easy. They don't take very long to cook, which is a real bonus. Plus, they taste really good. And it's a really nice dough, and it's a dough that you can kind of shape. So for Halloween, it's kind of ideal because what you can do is you can make it into any shape that you want. You know, I've got some really nice back cutters and witch cutters and all that kind of thing, which are really nice for scones. So what I'm doing here is, if you have a look, I've got the butter and the flour and the baking powder in here, and I'm just letting it go through my fingers like this and pressing it together. And what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get the mixture to go to kind of a breadcrumb mixture. Now this would be absolutely amazing for you to be doing with your tinies. And again, you know, such a great thing about cooking is they're measuring. But also like this, look at this. So I'm using my fine motor skills here. Just rubbing the butter and the flour together. And it's really good for them because it's a sensory thing. They're seeing a change in the consistency. You know, first of all, it was really powdery, and now, oh, it's kind of like breadcrumbs. And what does the butter feel like? Does it feel really slippy? It does, doesn't it? It feels a bit squidgy. Ugh. So that's fine. It hasn't taken long at all. And it can take you and your tiny as long as it has to. You know, just let them enjoy it because it's a really nice thing that, you know, you can do with them. It's great fun. So look, so this is more like breadcrumbs now. All the butter's in there, which is great. So instead of sugar in your cooking, it's a great idea to add fruit. So what I'm doing here is I've got some cherries, and these were frozen cherries. They come in a packet. They're really cheap. These ones are from Asda. They're Morello cherries. They've got a really, really lovely colour. And what I did is I just sieved them once they were defrosted and put them in a bowl, and then I've just used a hand whizzer to make it into kind of a puree, which is really good. So I'm going to make a little bit of a well in the flour here. Look, can you see? So there's a little bit of a dip in there, and I'm just going to put the cherry mixture in like that. And with a knife, this isn't a sharp knife, it's just an eating knife. What you can do with your children is you can just start mixing that together. So look, see how I'm mixing it here. It's really easily. And I think it's really nice to put some different textures in as well. So what I've got here is I've got some blueberries, which I've just chopped in half or in quarters, doesn't really matter. And I'm going to put those in as well. More vitamin C, more fruit for your children. And again, you know, they could help you with the chopping and with the mixing. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start adding the milk. So it's milk, lemon juice, vanilla extract. And I'm just going to start moving it, pouring it in. Give it a little mix first. I'm going to try and add maybe half of it and see how that goes. You don't want the dough to be too wet. So here we go. That's in there. And it's all starting to come together. Again, just using knives and stirring it round. And look at the colours. What colour's that? Do you think it's purple or is it pink? There we go. I think we're going to need some more of the milk. Just pour the rest of it in there. And once it gets to this kind of consistency, where it's all coming together, you can see there's a bit of flour in the bottom there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start using my hands. And again, this is great to do with children. It's all that touchy-feely sensory stuff. I've got a tiny little bit of flour here, which I'm going to put on my board. You can see I'm messy already. I'm going to tip this out and just start working it in together with my fingers. Wow, can you imagine how much the kids are going to love this? All that mixing, look at the colours are all coming together. You can feel the blueberries under your fingers. It's a little bit icky and sticky. There we go. Just going to put a little bit more flour on the top there. Great. There we go. If you want, you can pat it down with your fingers. Let the children pat it down with their fingers. Or you can give them a little chance to have a roll with the rolling pin. And again, this is so good for their fine motor skills. Look at that. Wow. We're making this, aren't we? Making it together. Okay, so we've got our scone dough. We've got our big cutter. And we've got either some greaseproof paper on a baking tray, or I've got some silicone here. So I'm going to use that. And we're just going to cut with our tinies. What shape are we cutting? We're cutting a circle. Wow, look at that. Squish it round a bit. That's amazing. We've got a circle. And then you're going to transfer the circle onto your baking sheet. Just like that. Okay. Now, how many legs does a spider have? Does anyone know? Do you think they have 4 legs? Maybe. Do you think they have 3 legs? Do you think so? Do you think they have 8 legs? Maybe they do. Maybe they have 8 legs. It really doesn't matter with your younger children how many legs they want on their spider. It's up to them. It doesn't really matter. But if you have older children and they're determined that it's going to be 8 legs, well, this is how you do it. So they're going to make 1 cut. And if they can like open it up a little bit with a knife, 2, 3, 4. There, that's in quarters, isn't it? Can you see it's in quarters? Again, that would be for your older children. Although, you know, if you're using maths language, it doesn't really matter if you're using it with a toddler, because, you know, it's all that exposure to the language. And then 1, 2, 3, 4. And then what they're going to do with their little pinchy fingers is pinch the legs together. And you know what? Doesn't matter if the legs fall off. Doesn't matter if they're really wide legs. What matters is the process. You know, your children have been making spiders. They've been doing this really, really nicely. I'm happy with that spider. For me, that's a big old hairy tarantula. And, you know, you've got all your dough here. You can make as many as you want. You can make smaller spiders, but if you do make smaller spiders, I might give them a few lesser legs and maybe just call them mini beasts. And what we're going to do here is we're going to use an egg wash, and we're just going to put the egg wash on the spider there. And now you can experiment. So I was thinking about this today, and I'm thinking, now what would I want on my spider? Well, do you know what I would want? I would want some of these. These are poppy seeds, and you can get them anywhere. Mine were from Sainsbury's. And what I'm going to do, look at how wonderful a sensory thing this is for your tiny. All that pinching and feeling. Mine's going to be a black hairy spider. Oh, love it. Just scatter it. Wow. And then we're going to give our spider some eyes. Now what I've got in here is, because I do a lot of baking, but I had loads of stuff in my cupboard. Just use stuff in your cupboard, you know, just think around it. So I've got some glacé cherries that I cut in half. I've got some blueberries left over from the actual scone mixture. And these aren't cut, these are just whole, these ones. And then I've got some sultanas, like different coloured sultanas. So I'm going to give my spider, this one here, some big old cherry eyes. Spiders have lots of eyes, don't they? So I might give mine. My spider's going to have 4 eyes. There it is. And you can use, again, you know, just let your children choose what they want to do. Have loads and loads of like little bits and pieces that they can do. Cut up apple, or, you know, maybe bits of banana. It doesn't really matter. It's all the process of the cooking. Right, so you can make as many of these as you can with the dough. You know, this would do another 3 big ones. And then put all the dough together, you know, mix it up, maybe just add a little bit more flour because it might be too sticky, roll it out again, and then do some more cutters. But if your children also just want, you know, if they're really tiny, they just actually want to squidge it and make shapes and then add a few eyes on or whatever, that's great too, because again, it's all about that process. So now I'm going to put my spider in the oven. It will go in the oven at about 200, 220, gas mark 7. and I'm going to keep an eye on it, but it should be, at this size, I would reckon about 15 minutes, maybe a little bit less, because it's got all the cuts. So, you know, let's have a look, shall we? We'll wait and see, and I'll show you the finished spider at the end. Okay, so 15 minutes later, I've maybe a little bit more. I kept opening the oven, having a look at them, just having a touch, making sure that they're quite springy still. Yeah, and they're all done, and I'm really excited about this. So I kind of put them together in a little Halloween tableau for you. Here are the spiders. I think they look really great. We did have some smaller ones, but unfortunately, it's been a long afternoon and I ate them, and they're really delicious. And you know, what you've got to know about this is you've cooked with your children. Your children have really enjoyed it. They've got loads and loads of development out of this. It's been a really bonding thing, hasn't it? Because, you know, you've really enjoyed it with them. And look what you've got. You've got these scary spiders, and I had a little bit of dough left over, so I made a skull. You could do this with your older ones. It looks great, doesn't it? So if you like this activity, if you think you know people that would really like to do it, then share it with a friend. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.